Welcome back. Today we're going to transition out of factoring to take it to the next level. The next level, the reason that we focus so heavily on factoring is what's called the zero product property. The zero product property allows us to solve quadratics by factoring them first. Because when you have two things that multiply to give you zero, it is true that both of them can be set equal to zero because one of the pieces must be zero in order for it to multiply to be zero. That is the only way that it can work. For two things to multiply to be zero, at least one of the pieces has to be zero itself. So what that means is when you look at things that are already in factored form, it means all you have to do is take each piece and set each piece equal to zero. So in this situation, that means x is -2 or x is 3. Both of those are solutions because if you plug them in, both of them would cause that whole thing to become zero because they cause one of the pieces to become zero. Same thing over here. You can take each piece and set it equal to zero. And by the zero product property, this means that x could be -4 because by making that first piece zero, the whole thing would become zero. Or here, we have a little bit of solving to do. I need to add the, I need to add the 5 over to the other side. I need to divide by 2. And that is also a solution because that would make the second piece zero. So this is a very, very critical thing in being able to solve these quadratics. Now, unfortunately for us, usually we're not given things that are already in factored form. So the important thing is, if you're given a quadratic equation and you're told to solve it, your first line of attack should be factor it, because then once in factored form, you should be able to use the zero product property to solve it. So I'm going to set up my two parentheses. X squared, again, as always, comes from x and x. This 15 comes from 1 and 15, or 3 and 5. Well, the combination that adds up to that 8 is going to be the 3 and the 5, because 3x plus 5x is 8x. So I've appropriately factored it. Now from here, now that I have it factored, now I can apply the zero product property. Because now I can say, hey, this first piece, I can set it equal to 0 and solve. And the second piece, I can set equal and solve. So again, the key here is you can always factor it and then apply the zero product property. Because by using the zero product property of finding the two solutions by making both pieces equal to 0. And finally, this last example. Again, that x squared is going to come from x and x. That 7 has to come from 1 and 7. But something that I'm noticing is it's adding to give me a negative. So what's the only way you can add to be negative but multiply to be positive? Well, the only way that that's possible is if both are actually negative. So we're not talking about 1 and 7. We're talking about -1 and -7, which if you look, do add to give you a -8. So this does actually end up working out. Now that I have it factored, now I take each piece and set each piece equal to 0 based on the zero product property. Because individually those pieces will make one of the pieces 0 inevitably meaning the whole thing will become 0. All right, so please make sure you have all those written down, and as always, make sure you come and ask if there's anything you still find confusing.